No, I think, and I see this also, I'm now giving trainings in the National Police Academy to the candidates who are becoming commissioners and head commissioners and head inspectors. Um, and we have been trained from the pyramid, right? From thinking like we have to be on top of people. We have to tell them what to do and how to do it, and micromanage and be in control of everything. Have a good span of control, because otherwise we will lose our power. Um, and it's actually that's what I keep saying also to these candidates and to everybody who wants to start even thinking about having a transformation, is that it starts with you. It starts with the person who wants to instigate this. Look in the mirror first and ask yourself if you want to be the best, if you can be the best version of yourself. Ask yourself a lot of questions. What do I really want? What is my mission? What are my values, my personal values? What do I want to, how do I want to serve? What is there that society or my community needs that I can help towards? If that has the good answers, and you are convinced that that is what you want to do, that is your passion, that is what that becomes your mission, your ikigai, the Japanese call it, then you can make a go of it. And still, it's going to be hard work. I can tell you it. I've done it. I've tried it myself, and I went flat on my face. Some things work, and some things didn't work, but you learn from that. And the thing is, once you are convinced of what I'm just saying, your own ikigai, your own passion, your own, we can do this together. If you strongly believe in this, you never give up. Even going on your face, even having the most setbacks that you can have, you still never will give up.
Hi, Erwin. How are you?
Hi, Peter. How are you? I'm fine, thank you.
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Thanks for the time. Now, Erwin, I've met you 5 years ago, but I'm going to ask another question first. Corona. What is actually you're working for the Federal Police again. What is actually the impact of Corona on you, on your job?
Well, it has had a big influence on the way we work together at this moment in time, because we were always asked to come to Brussels, to Etterbeek, where the headquarters of our National Police Academy is, and we could already work from home 2 days a week, yeah. But it couldn't be. It wasn't structured. You had to choose yourself when that would be possible, and it had to have a reason. So now all of a sudden, everybody, all the trainers, all the people from the offices work from home mostly. Only when really necessary, they go to the office. So that has had a big impact on our way of working. But we kept on working. We kept on developing our training programs online. We have adopted in a big way the distant learning methods, and et cetera, et cetera. So we are now using the technology in a big way to train our candidates who are there to have a training, of course. The only thing, of course, we will have to develop is the practical trainings, like
of course,
FTXs and stuff like that. So,
okay.
It has had a big impact on my job, of course. And I'm still working from home at this moment in time. I'm still giving lessons to the candidates, officers, senior officers online. So.
And then more from a high level, more from a, what we call it, spiritual, philosophical level on the human being. What do you think is going to be the impact of Corona on?
Well, I think it has actually given us a chance to slow down. A lot of people were inside the rat race, and all of a sudden they're sort of obliged to have more quality time with their families, have work from home, and divide their time between being home and working, trying to find a balance, which is not easy in a lot of cases. I think if you have children, etc., it might not always be easy. But I think it makes people think on how we can actually evolve towards different ways of working.
Mhm.
It has had a good impact on our environment. It has had a good impact on our traffic jams. My girlfriend works in Brussels, so I sometimes have to drive her to her working place. And on Monday morning, for instance, there's hardly any traffic. So it's a wonderful thing that we can actually see how it sort of resolves the traffic jams and the density of things. Um, and I think if this might be a period that people can really um, start thinking about evolving towards a more maybe human-centered way of living together. Sort of going back to our tribal ways of doing
Yeah,
things,
yeah,
but
and
then with the technology, of course.
yeah. So you believe that we are not going to go back to the old normal? There's going to be a new normal.
Well, let's say I hope not, and I think there will, of course, be new normals necessary, because
Mhm.
even if you look at it now, the way we will go to shops, the way we communicate with each other, the way we even, of course, it's hard when you visit your family not to be able to hug them and give them a kiss, and on Sunday it was my grandson's birthday, and I went there to have a piece of cake, but I couldn't even hug him and kiss him.
Yeah.
That's hard, of course, but we will get used to that at a certain moment in time, and hopefully that kind of thing will go away. We will be able to hug and kiss again our loved ones. On the other hand, it might also trigger the more respect for each other, because that's what I saw especially in the first days of lockdown, for instance. A lot of hoarding, a lot of people, um, you know, let's say almost fighting for goods,
Mhm.
which is totally selfish and totally not done, you would say. But I think people mellowed down at this moment in time, and a lot of respect for people in shops and in the care sector and
Yeah.
etc. has risen. Now also all of a sudden we start realizing what these people mean for us. It's thanks to these sectors that we can still
Yeah.
live in a normal way, so to speak.
Yeah. And we took them for granted for years.
Exactly, exactly. So I think that will hopefully become the new normal, and I see good signs that this will happen.
You were also, if I'm correct, involved in the post-corona movement.
I sort of, because of the things with my job, I had to let it go. Also because of some internal discussions we had, and I
Okay.
wished everybody good luck. And
Okay.
let's say the start of it was I was invited, and I was trying to set up things together with other people about culture and about our values. Let's say to start with the why first, as Simon Sinek calls it. Some other people were very eager to go and do action, have action organized. So I said, well, for me, this is not the right way to do it. I wish you all the best of luck,
Yeah. Okay.
but I'm sort of getting out of this, and so they're still going on, and I'm sort of still following it, but I'm not no longer involved
Okay.
at this.
Okay. Now, I think more than 5 years ago, I've met you in Ghent, and you were actually, and still for me, you are one of the Belgian national faces of self-leading organization, which then called Teal Movement, but also one of your big idols and also one of my big inspirators is Ricardo Semler.
Mhm.
Um, He's also, by the way, guitar player, so he's one of the good
Yes,
ones.
yes, indeed, yeah.
Now, where does that passion come from about the self-leading, the self-steering teams? Where does that? Yeah,
That comes from a long way back. I entered the police force in 80, in 1st of April, and it wasn't an April Fool's Day or joke. I mean, I entered the police force in Bruges, and after a while, you sort of start thinking of how people are interacting with each other. Already back then, as a young policeman, I was sort of kind of a rebel. I was sort of kind of a person who didn't agree with the fact that our bosses, who probably didn't know any better, and I can't blame them for that. You know, it's how the way we are sort of educated and raised, but how they looked down on us and told us with the finger if you don't do this and if. So I always had like this feeling like this is not right. You know. So I sort of started talking about this to my colleagues, and they always said, okay, you know, you might be right, but we can't do anything about it. So I begged to differ at that moment in time, and that's the reason why I became a senior officer, why I started studying and became a criminologist, and then afterwards I became a senior officer. Because in the position that you are, in the lower position, the lower ranks, you indeed have no power or empowerment to do anything.
Yeah.
But even as a senior officer, I felt that I was just part of the whole game. You know, it was like I couldn't still trigger enough people with my ideas, which I already had back then. So I was always looking for different insights and different ideas, even as a young senior officer, trying to do things differently with my own departments that I led, which of course is not easy. I will tell you that, because you have different kinds of people and you have to sort of try and mellow that, and that's not very easy. But I kept digging and I kept digging, and I think it was the 1st of May 2000, and now I have to think, now 2010 or 2011. I saw this program on actually it was the Belgian television, an extraction of the Dutch program on Ricardo Semler, which was called the Kapitale Kracht van Geluk in the Tegenlicht episode. And when I saw this story, I was like, see, I've always had these ideas, and this guy has done it, right? So I was really eager to find out more about this guy. So I bought his 2 books, read them in about 3 weeks' time. And I also, of course, looked at the bigger program and also other YouTube videos and whatever I could find on this guy. You know, I sort of, let's say, I deepened myself into his insights, into his ideas, his principles, and I started giving lectures on that, which was not done in Belgium or even in Holland. I think my 2nd or my 3rd lecture on that was in Eindhoven. So, and they had never heard of Semler either. But then, of course, it became bigger, and the first time I met him was in 2014 when he came to Nieuwegein to do a lecture there.
And how was that, meeting him? Because if I was going to meet like Jimi Hendrix or Eric Clapton, sometimes I'm a little afraid, or Nile Rodgers, or David Gilmour, I would be afraid meeting my heroes because...
Well, it was sort of, he's a very charismatic person. But he's also very integral and very authentic. So he immediately, because I tried to go to him to have my book signed, you know, and I also was one of I think 50 people who were allowed closer to him to have a little chat, you know, but in group. So when I signed, I had also asked a question during his lecture. I had asked a question, and I told him that I was from Belgium, blah blah blah, and he sort of had remembered this, because when I came up to him and tried to sign and asked him to sign my book, he asked me, so where in Belgium do you live? And I was like, he still remembers this? So then we started sort of chatting a little for like maybe 5 minutes, and immediately he gives you this feeling like he's not more than you, and he's not this big star, and he makes you feel at ease, and you know, it's a normal talk like I'm having with you. It was very easy. So of course I was very happy at that moment in time, but afterwards I even got closer to him because I set up the Semco Style Institute, and I met him about 3 more times on a very personal note, talking for maybe between a half an hour and an hour. I also had a podcast, just like we are having now, had a podcast with him where he was actually interviewing me, and I thought that I was going to interview him. No, it was the other way around.
Okay.
So that was quite interesting. That was in 2015 or 6. I should look it up. I sort of forgot about it. But that was so amazing that I could meet one of my biggest inspirators, you know, and also talk to him. And in the same period, I also met people like Frederic Laloux. I met people like Jos de Blok. I met other people that have inspired me, Walter Torfs and others, you know. And this gives you a view of they don't want to be put on pedestals. You know, they're just normal people having the same ideas, and you're so like-minded that you have connection straight away. That's how, and that's probably also what our connection is, Peter. So that it doesn't differ.
But for me, it's yeah. I have also that rebellious thing. I mean, I have difficulties with command and control organization because I believe it doesn't work. Because the total is more than the sum of the underlying parts. Now, one of the things that I really remembered of the documentary of Ricardo Semler is that he said, don't try to be Semco number 2. Try to be your thing and be inspired, but don't copy it because you are not that. Is that then the biggest trap that a lot of organizations, because I've worked in a lot of organizations who have implemented it and they failed. Is that one of the things that you see as the biggest trap?
Exactly. I think one of the biggest flaws that companies who want to organize a transformation or want to sort of let's say evolve their culture make one big mistake. They look for tools and they look for methodologies, and they look for ways of how can we do this practically, which is, of course, I can understand this because everything has to be structured and has to be. What they forget is the goal, you know. So they make out of this methodology or this tool that they are using, like Sociocracy 3.0 or Holacracy or Scrum or whatever there is there. They forget that this is only a tool, and they put this forward. They put this in front of them as the goal in itself, so it becomes the goal. But of course, this tool can never become the goal, and that's what they forget. So that's why they also sort of create a self-fulfilling prophecy in a lot of cases, because a lot of managers have this feeling like, okay, maybe we should try this, but we're not really convinced. Well, if you're not convinced, you shouldn't even try it. So they either do this, have this idea like, okay, we're going to try it, but it's going to fail anyway. Well, then you create a self-fulfilling prophecy. So you make it so that it doesn't work, right?
But that's
we're going to do this as they make a hype of it, or they want to follow the hype, and then they say, oh, we're going to do self-management. They use a tool. The tool doesn't work for everybody, and then they say, "Oh, we'll demolish it because it doesn't work." You know.
Now, like a couple of years, it was really hip or trendy, and then to talk about sociocracy, and indeed, it's a means to serve the organization, and they made it the goal where they're going to force people, and then. But I also think that still a lot of managers or people are afraid, are scared to give away their ego and their power, and that they the difference between power and force, and that's it's for a lot of people I see take away their title and they lose their identity. And this is the whole thing about self-steering teams. It's the team which is steering.
No, I think, and I see this also, you know, I'm now giving trainings in the National Police Academy to the candidates who are becoming commissioners and head commissioners and head inspectors. And we have been trained from the pyramid, right? From thinking like we have to be on top of people. We have to tell them what to do and how to do it, and micromanage and be in control of everything, have a good span of control, because otherwise we will lose our power. And it's actually, that's what I keep saying also to these candidates and to everybody who wants to start even thinking about having a transformation, is that it starts with you. It starts with the person who wants to instigate this. Look in the mirror first. and ask yourself if you want to be the best, if you can be the best version of yourself. Ask yourself a lot of questions. What do I really want? What is my mission? What are my values, my personal values? What do I want to, how do I want to serve? What is there that society or my community needs that I can help towards? If that has the good answers, and you are convinced that that is what you want to do, that is your passion, that is what you, that becomes your mission, your ikigai, the Japanese call it, then you can make a go of it. And still, it's going to be hard work. I can tell you it. I've done it. I've tried it myself, and I went flat on my face. Some things work, and some things didn't work, but you learn from that. And the thing is, once you are convinced of what I'm just saying, your own ikigai, your own passion, your own, we can do this together. If you strongly believe in this, you never give up. Even going on your face, even having the most setbacks that you can have, you still never will give up, because it's inside. It's part of you. It becomes part of. It's like playing music, Peter. We both play music, so even I started to replay. I started playing again after 13 years, and it's still there. It's in my blood.
The fire keeps burning.
And it's the same thing with this whole idea of putting people in their own personal strength, making them involved, making them engaged. You know,
and manifest their potential. It's manifesting the potential, but at the same time also, I really believe, and that's something I took from Jan Bomré, is the power is not only in the people, but it's in the relationships between the people. An organization that can flow, that the energy can flow through the organization. And I think those two combined, then you have like a high performance team, where there is no fear, there is no fake trust, but really, people can be themselves. They can be emotionally, how do you say that? Yeah, safe. That's the term I learned from Google. And I think then you can really connect and engage with each other. And then you're like an organism instead of an organization.
Yeah, true. Well, that's the whole idea. And also that's, you know, you mentioned Jan, and Jan became a good friend also because he was one of the first people I read the book about, you know, kan je een rups leren vliegen? And then of course the flow and doing business and flow or seeing the wood from the trees, etc.
Yes. It's all the same, eh?
Yeah. It's about flow, and it's about how you as a person can contribute to the bigger whole, right? So of course, when you have read these books, you are self-reflecting. You are really looking inside yourself and finding this fire that is inside you, which burns in everybody. The only thing is that people keep it sometimes in a little flame, in a little waking flame, and never start burning it. And you have people like us who really want to go for it, you know, sometimes even driven and overdriven sometimes, you know. But if you then have these books of Jan, who are very inspiring, and then you get the chance to meet somebody like Ricardo Sammer or Frederic Laloux, who also talks about these 3 breakthroughs in Thiel, who don't only speak about self-management, but about being part of the whole and being able to be yourself, what you are really worth. Also having this way of being able to have creative innovation, you know, and evolutionary purpose, you know, and being part of that. That's what drives people.
What I was really fascinated about also Ricardo Semmer is that he not only applied that to an organization, he even applied that to the school system. He said, why in the hell should people learn a lot of books by their heads if you can put it on a USB stick? And he was like, and then he even went further. He applied it to a community, like a city. So I found that was really, it was not about the organization. He really went very, very far. I don't know at this moment where he's standing in that, but for some way I really believe, I really believe in that.
Yeah. Well, I think you're talking about the Lumiere schools and Mellows, of course. And I asked them the same question. The last time I met, I said, so how are your other projects going? You know, and the Lumiere schools are still there. Actually, his foundation is actually set up to fund the Lumiere school. So that's going quite well because the, you have to also understand the reason why he did this. You know, um, in the company Semco, which was very democratic, you know, one of the most democratic workplaces in the world, where people actually decide everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they got these people from university or from high school coming into the company and waiting to be told what they had to do because that's what they thought was normal, right? So even when they were like, say, even when they were taught or let's say told that this wasn't the way to do it and that they had to decide things for themselves, a lot of them stepped away. And Ricardo sort of said, how is this possible? So he looked at the schooling system and then said, okay, if that's what it takes, we need to go back to the first grade or even to the kindergarten,
Yes.
for that matter, right? So he started a school, Lumiere, um, from the age of basic school, from the age of 4 to 5 to 14, where kids decide everything about their learning. So they don't have they don't have steady teachers telling them this and this and this. They decide themselves on what subject they will learn, and they have mentors. They have people who actually guide them, and they learn a lot themselves. Can you imagine a kid of 4 years old already deciding on what he wants to learn?
Yeah.
And of course, that's very basic at that moment in time. But as they grow older, they are very much lucid enough to
Yeah.
know what they need to become smarter, you know.
Yeah.
And then of course the third project was Melos. That's actually the village where he had his big hotel built, and also where he lives himself. So that's a bit in the middle of the Amazon. And I think that's the hardest, you know, changing it, or let's say transforming a society, a little community, is probably the hardest, because what he also says is that you have to have a cut of society in any organization. So there will be negativity. There
Yeah.
will be people who don't live up to expectations. It will not always be perfect. And in the community, there's always like a bit of polarization as well, no? So,
Mm.
or jealousy, or people have an envy towards each other, and that's probably the hardest part. So it's still going, but it's not as he would have wanted it to happen. So
Yeah. If you could go back in time, like 10 years ago, what would be your, yeah, the biggest lesson if you would redo it again in the organizations?
um, oh, let's say I wouldn't change a lot in that sense. That maybe I sort of try to combine my job with being a speaker and doing all things next to that. Maybe I would have chosen earlier to leave my job and go for it. But I was sort of part of the golden cage, if I can call it like that.
Yeah.
Safe, and I only did it at a certain amount in a moment in time when I couldn't actually make any other choice. Because I had in 2017, I had already had a lot of lectures in abroad, like in Sweden, in Germany, in France, all over the place, Denmark, Holland, Poland, wherever. And I had taken a lot of days off for that.
Yeah.
So by half the year, almost all my days off were gone. So my chief of the police of Leuven told me, he said, I admire what you do, but you will have to make a choice. So I actually, of course, I chose to become self-employed, but it wasn't enough structurized, and that's probably what I would do differently. I sort of jumped, not knowing what was going to happen. In the beginning, it was still okay, but after a while, I didn't have enough revenue, and it forced me to, well, I also set up the Semco Style Institute, which had the same problems. We didn't get enough revenue, maybe because the time wasn't right. The interest was there in Flanders, but I think the time wasn't there or the budget wasn't there, which I of course can understand. A lot of people were very interested and said, "Oh yeah, but we're in the middle of a reorganization, so we have to wait." And you know, financially, if you can't sustain yourself,
Yeah.
it's at a certain moment in time it stops.
Yeah.
Am I sorry about that? Of course, I would have liked to see it differently. But then again, it gave me a lesson of I've tried it. I have nothing to blame towards myself. And I could go back. Luckily, I could go back to my old job. Well, let's see. And the lucky thing is, out of learning from that, I have now the opportunity to teach my colleagues, senior officers, you know, future senior officers, the things about Semler, about Thiel, about more human-centric policy making, etc., etc.
I mean, if you just talked about, you mentioned Wouter Torfs. I remember that Wouter Torfs, long time ago, he was a real male, masculine, hard command and control manager, and he completely switched to the human-centric leader, I would call him. Now, do you believe that? He's one of them, and I also believe that Durabrick, Joost Calles is also another one, and I believe also Boss Paints is another one.
Mm-hmm.
Do you? There's now 3 people. Do you see it's going to flip, or is the movement, the hype around it a little bit more slowed down? Or
I don't think so. I think it's going to be. I think there might be a momentum at this moment in time that people will really pick up on this. Because, see, you know, we were now forced to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
This means that a lot of managers will have had to let go of control.
Yep.
Unless they have put in place a controlling system where people have to work from home and be on camera all day, for instance.
But they do it. There are companies who actually take a screenshot of your screen every 10 minutes, or they install spyware on your system. I mean, I would immediately resign. Immediately.
Exactly. That's more of the old school thinking, and that's because people don't want to let go of control, or let's say artificial control, because they don't really have control. So you still have 10 minutes to spare, you know, and every person who has a bit of knowledge of technology, there's a lot of things that people can do to go around this, you know, and that's what people also will do if they are forced into that. So I've been working from home since the beginning of the lockdown, and every day I sat at my computer, was busy making my because I have this internal engagement.
Yeah,
I want to do good, you know, and I think 90% of the people are like that.
Me too. I'm convinced.
So I think people like Wouter Torfs and Joost Collins and Jan Bossuet can really be inspirators or inspirers of other people looking at this and saying, maybe we should really look into doing things differently. Will the, let's say, the critical mass be reached? Maybe not yet, but at least we have a momentum in time where we can really sort of push it a little and say, look, this is actually the time that we don't want to go back to the old days anymore.
But I think also that there are a couple of things. Is that, first of all, that's after this period when people are allowed again to go back to work, and the employer has pissed off the employees by not giving them trust and things like that. Especially when you have small children and you have to work, it's quite challenging. I can assure you that. I mean, a lot of people, and I see that already today, they are applying for other jobs. They are searching for other jobs. That's one. Second, I think also, and that's what you mentioned in the beginning, is that a lot of people are going to reflect and really ask themselves, because there are no distractions. You are with yourself, so, and your loved ones, hopefully. So you think, what do I want in life? Who am I? And I'm going to trade my hours for some kind of money, for some kind of job that I really don't like. You mentioned the fire. I think a lot of people were in a kind of survival mode, and now they have the time to really discover, is this maybe not for me, or do I want something else? And 3, if I look, and this is something I saw on other podcasts with the younger ones, the millennials, whatever, 23, 28, all of them, they are very purpose driven and they choose things they do on value. And the money is a means and not the goal. And I think that's, okay, you're turning 60, I'm 45. It's not exactly the same generation, but I mean, I was really raised on security. Make sure you have a house and a good job and security, safety. Whereas these people, they are really more, no, you should go for the things that make you happy, that give you positive energy, that makes some kind of impact on the world. And these three things together, I mean, if you want to keep and find new people, and the good ones, I think this kind of new leadership is going to be the right way. Otherwise, you're not going to keep or find the good people.
Yeah, I think so too. In that sense, that especially the millennials and even the Generation Z, which is now coming onto the working market, have different ideas on how they want to live their lives. You know, and indeed, it's like you say, money becomes something. Okay, it's needed, but it's not the biggest goal in my life. I want to have a good life. I want to explore things. I want to travel. I want to see the world, etc., etc. My generation, and still yours, but maybe a bit less than mine, I don't know, was really raised to have a good job. You know, I joined the police. I always say to my students, I'm an atypical commissioner, because, or actually even an atypical policeman, because just like you, I was a rebel. And laws, okay, they are there. Rules need to be there. We have a society which is, of course, has to have structure. I am okay with that. But I have a problem with rules for the rules. Yeah. And yet I still chose to be in security because my dad said, oh, you know, join the police force. It's a steady job. You have a good pension, blah, 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 blah. And I'm still part of that because I chose too late to search for something else. Well, too late, between brackets. Now these young people don't, but these guys are the future. So actually, if we're talking about people like Walter Thorst and Jos Collins and all the other guys doing it, also Jeff Colruyt, and there's a number of people who are really can have impact on businesses. If they focus on this younger generation, that's when we can tilt the whole situation. And this might happen now. I'm maybe, and also it's like the people from post-corona, they focused on the end of the lockdown. And I said, you shouldn't focus on the end of the lockdown. Look further than that, because it's not because the lockdown will be finished. First of all, it's going to take a while. It's going to be step by step by step by step. But we're also going to be confronted with the aftermath, which is going to be the financial problems that we will have.
And
everybody will have.
And mental and psychological problems also.
Exactly. So if we want to share these dreams and make them implementable, because that's the whole idea behind the post-corona movement, we should focus on what really can be changed and not make it high in the sky dreams. That's okay. People can have that. That's wonderful. But they have to be realistic as well, because especially if we want to make them into implementable, otherwise we might, or we could fear going back to the old days, because change is very difficult for a lot of people. You know, they want to, and actually when you talk about Ricardo Samler or Walter Torfs or Jos Collins or other people who inspire others, they have also, well, I didn't know them before. I've only gotten to know them while they were already doing this human-centric way of doing things. But I'm sure if they have changed their mindset, it had to do with something that happened in their life on a very personal level.
Always. Same for me, eh? Same for me, eh? Yeah. Same for me. It's always, I'm not going to go into detail, but for me, and I think it's the same for you, as a male, you raised by emotions are bad, and this is for girls and things like that. So you do everything from your head. And so this means also that, you live from your head until you're going to see in personal relationships that is not working. If you are going to discover also the fact emotions and the the way the heart works, living from the heart, which was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, something, it sounded crazy, but now it really resonates with me. And there lies the real power, finding the path of what gives you positive energy, even if society thinks you're completely nuts. And I think also for these people that it is the same thing, because your scholars, the vulnerable leader, kwetsbaar leider, that's for me the same thing, because vulnerability is some typical female energy, and something happened also there. So it's always, so Jan Bommeré, from the inside to the outside transformation. So so that's what I assume what happened.
Yeah. And actually, when you come to think of it, we talk about trust and about all these steel human-centered values, which is, for instance, trust is one of the biggest ones. That's also the basic idea behind Semco Style Institute. Is trust. That's the key word in a lot of cases. Then you have respect, you have benevolence, you have integrity, authenticity, transparency, etc., etc. But if we talk about all these values are also triggered and inspired in other people by vulnerability, by humility, not by boasting about your ego. Look at what's happening at this moment in time. I'm not going to go too deep in it. I could go on for an hour or maybe 2 hours if I start talking about Mr. Trump. If he wanted to be reelected, he should have shown leadership and vulnerability and humility, especially, because now people are turning away because of his way of doing things. He could have done this totally differently, but people will start distrusting him because, except for maybe the diehards, of course, and you even have the diehard Trumpies in Flanders. You sometimes read the comments on things that I go like, how can you not see what's happening? And this is the leader of the Western world, so-called. But he's making a fool out of himself for the whole world, and because he has this massive ego. And if he would let go of his ego and become humble, the humble servant,
that's it.
What a president should be.
I think that's the conclusion. If that's for me also the thing. I think maybe 35, 38 years, the ego was part of was actually my identity. But when then I realized that my ego was nothing more than some conditions, which is something which can serve me, but it's not the master, because there's something more, which is me, and the ego is just something that can serve me. Then I don't need the titles anymore. I don't need to prove anything anymore. Don't need the big cars, the career and things like that. I'm fine as it is, and I don't need to be fixed, and I don't need to compare anymore. And letting go of all these fake identities, exactly.
It's all, Peter, it's all artificial. It doesn't say anything about who you are.
Nope.
And my first lesson that I gave now in the beginning of March, we had the first lesson with the new candidates commissioner. I started with saying, okay, my rank is first commissioner, but you can call me Erwin. And they go like, what? And they still keep calling me commissioner while I'm saying, no, I'm Erwin. Okay, this is my rank. This is something I studied for. I can be proud of this, but this is only for me. My proudness should only be for me. I'm okay with that I achieved this. I'm happy about the fact that I achieved this. I also get rewarded more because of this, so I shouldn't even boast about it. The fact is, being a commissioner or a manager or having this big function title doesn't say anything about you as a leader, as a person, as a human being even.
Nope.
Does it say anything about if you have dignity enough, if you have benevolence enough, if you are a human being enough towards other people, if you are willing enough to contribute to others, to society or whatever? And if it doesn't, well, then this whole function title means zilch.
Yeah, that's good.
You can drive a big car and have a big bank account, but as a person, you are not credible.
And that's
not at all.
and that's the thing also I learned, and it's the same for you. When you play music, I mean, you play with people of all walks of life, and they don't care if you're a manager, a driver, a big car. You enter there, are you a nice person? Can you work together and think as a team? So this means as a guitar player, you don't turn everything onto 10 and you play the whole time. So you leave space and you let room to everybody play and you serve the song. Serve the song. And this is where I learned that in for instance, playing music, I mean, they don't care. Most of the bandmates don't even know what I'm doing professionally. They don't care. You're the guitar player and the rapper. Give some show and play, and yeah, but you're laughing. And
when is your next gig? When is I want to come and
yeah, but normally it was the Hense Feesten. But the thing is that it also makes you humble, I find, because it detracts you from your micro bubble where you're in during your professional life, and then you're like a musician, and then you're all the same, and that's when I realized that was for me. It's always the same. It's the total. It's more than the sum of the underlying parts, and the power is in the relationships. It's always in the relationships, and it's that what makes us. 1 + 1 is 11, but it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about you and me and the co-creation of it. And it's the same. It is the same for organizations and the same for a music band.
Very true.
And Ricardo Semler was and is a guitar player.
Yeah, true. And he also used the metaphor of his band
that
he used to play. The idea of this band actually triggered him to do things differently in his company, because he said, "We don't have a leader as a band. You know, of course, you have, let's say, more." If I look at my own band at this moment in time, the guitar player singer is actually the leader of the band, if you want to call it like that, because we all serve him. He has to bring the song as a singer and also do the guitar parts. He works in a factory, so it doesn't matter what he does in his life, but he's actually the leader at that moment in time. And everybody can be a leader. So it's about also what Lalou calls this living organism as metaphor.
Yeah.
Look at our body, right? We are Erwin, I'm Erwin, you're Peter, and we have our body. Is there a CEO cell in the top of our head looking down on all the other cells? Of course not. No. In a tree or in my dog that's sleeping at this moment in time, is there a CEO cell or a management layer who controls everything? No, because why? This pyramid that we have made of hierarchy is totally artificial.
Yes.
So what we need to establish is a sort of natural hierarchy of leaders based on expertise, based on knowledge, based on experience, not on function titles, because it says nothing. I'm a criminologist, right? Can I tell you honestly, what do I still remember about my education as criminologist? Well, maybe here and there, a few parts, and it has made my, let's say, it has sort of made a base for my thinking. Yeah, that's good, of course, but it's not about what you learn as a criminologist or a lawyer or a doctor or whatever. It's what you do with it, which is much more important, and how you do it. You know, how you do it towards other people. And that's the only thing that counts as a human being, is like, how do I relate to other people? That's what Jan Bommeré says. It's about the relationships. It's about who we are as a person and how I can influence in a constructive, positive way other people to do good. You know, one of my first initiatives that I did, but once I had these ideas, was set up the Pay It Forward movement in Belgium. I don't know if you know Pay It Forward. No.
I know the principle, but I didn't know there was a movement.
One of the things, it still exists in theory, but we don't do anything with it anymore. And it's about setting up some events like, okay, we are going to do this Pay It Forward principle, and sort of try and instigate this in other people, try and inspire other people to do it. I can tell you, once I started doing this, doing acts of kindness, stupid little things of acts of kindness, there's actually a chemical product that is released in your brain. It's called dopamine, which makes you happy if you have done something good for somebody else, even if you can't even afford it. You know what I mean? Um, so that's what happiness is about. Trigger your dopamine
Yeah, that's
instead of
it.
your anger, anger hormones. You know.
It's all about serving, and if you get
Yeah.
that, it's about serving. And if you understand that, that is really what propels you, gives you energy. I
Yeah.
mean, how far can you go? I mean, how much can you accumulate? Where does it stop? It doesn't stop. It's like that carrot in front of you. You will never be happy. And this is because we believe that once we have achieved some kind of success, whatever that definition of success is, we'll be happy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just the other way around. And once you
Exactly.
get that, yeah, then is everything is fine.
Yeah.
Now, besides Ricardo Semler, besides Frédéric Lheureux, and all the others you mentioned, are there still role models that inspire you that we did not discuss, Tom?
Oh yeah, there's so many, you know. I have a good friend in Holland who is called René Kesselaar, and he's a rugby guy. I mean, he's 2 meters tall and he's like massive, you know. He's like this wonderful teddy bear, but he's a rugby guy, and he has implemented rugby insights inside his company, saying in the rugby team there is no leader. There is no, even the canteen lady just has one goal. We want to win the game, and we will
Okay.
do anything together to win this game. So he has a building company, and he has sort of in his company to working together with other companies building apartments and houses and whatever, has developed this chain leadership, so to speak, where people actually pick up themselves when they are coming to do their bit. And they have, this is one of the biggest examples you can find, or let's say inspiring anecdotes, is that they built 43 apartments in 10 weeks time in
Okay.
this chain reaction. You can actually talk to big building companies here and say, okay, can you do that? 43 apartments that are actually livable in 10 weeks time. And he's such, and also when he talks, you know, he also gives speeches, and he's a wonderful guy. He's so, and that's what I found a common ground, you know. And there's other people also I've met, people you never heard of, you know, that just do it. They don't write books about it. They don't come on YouTube. You can't actually find them, but yet you meet them in colloquiums or whatever, or events that you go to. And they are very inspiring because they share their ideas with you just because they love doing it. Um, so these kind of people, and there's a lot. There's more than we think. There's more than we know actually. Um, so of course you have the big examples, and that's the people. I don't know, but people need big examples to sort of be in awe. You know, be
Yeah,
in awe.
these idols. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's actually just maybe the smaller names that actually can be the real inspirers, you know. Just like René Kesselaar, he's like one of the biggest authentic people I know.
Okay.
You know what happened? One of my first lectures I gave, it was in 2011. Um, and that was in Leuven, in the environment of Leuven. And in the morning, I was still working in Ostend at that moment in time, but I lived in Limburg, so I had to travel, not every day, but I had to travel between those two places. And in the morning, I got this telephone call, and there was this Dutch guy on the other end, and asking me, "Oh, Mr. Van Waeleghem, you are giving a lecture this evening?" I said yes, and it's about Ricardo Semler. I said yes. Oh, I'm going to be there tonight. I come all the way from Alkmaar, which is
Okay.
above
Yeah.
Amsterdam. So I'm going to have a nice weekend with my wife in Leuven and in Brussels, but I'm coming to see your lecture. And this was René Kesselaar. He's a big shot inspirer himself, and he comes to listen to me. At that moment in time, I didn't mean anything yet, no, as a speaker, I mean. And he was there, and he was so supportive, and I was so amazed by this guy. And I just said to him, René, can you please come and share your story with these people. Yes, but this is your lecture, and I don't want to take away time from you. And I said, please do this. You know, this is going to be very inspiring for the other people. And so he did. He talked for about 20 minutes, and people were glued to his lips. So was I, actually. It was like, and since we became good friends, we met a few times. Of course, the distance doesn't help, but we're still in contact once in a while, asking how are you doing, etc. And this guy for me is even more maybe than the other people, is very inspiring. You know?
Okay, cool. Now, if you would go back, Erwin, with a DeLorean, Back to the Future, and you would meet, so you're now turning 60, and you would meet the Erwin who is 18, and he's going to start his studies. What advice would you give him?
Don't join the police force and do something else.
Okay.
No, maybe do something more in what I know now, of course, no, but although I have no regrets, because of course it wasn't my calling, you know, but on the other hand, you grow inside this job. You know, you do whatever you have to do, and you grow inside it. And I also try to be Erwin inside the police force, serving, really serving, even back in you know, when I was 21. Being there for the people. Maybe it was my calling, but not really my calling to join an institution that controls people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I tried to be, you know, for 5 years I was a motorcycle cop, and motorcycle cops are known to give tickets. No, I had so few tickets that my commissioner told me, "Why are you not writing tickets?" Of course, we have discretionary. You know, we can write at our own discretion, so that's not a problem. He didn't tell me that I had to write tickets, but he was just asking, "Why don't you write?" I said to him, "Well, I tell people what the idea behind the rule is, and why it's better not to go against it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because they endanger other people, maybe." So I said, well, I think people will grasp the idea behind it much better if I explain it to them in a very human-centered way than instead of writing a ticket and getting money out of their pocket. And I truly believe that. So I wasn't a very big contributor to the tax man, I think. But it has made me who I am, of course.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so I have no regrets. I don't think I would change it. I might say maybe start earlier with the whole idea of speaking, and because I only had this at a later age, and of course, although I performed, I started playing music when I was 28, and I performed quite a bit. And sort of speaking in front of public is sort of the same. It's like, you know,
For me, it's the same.
with a gig, no?
For me, it's the same. It's completely the same.
Exactly.
It's not just about words. It's a performance.
Yeah.
It's more than just playing the notes. You have to connect, and it's a performance. So you have to give. You have to make it a show.
Yeah. So I think I would say to the young Erwin, I would say start earlier with what you are, with your passion. Start earlier with your passion, because it's my passion. You know.
Great. Now, Erwin, last question. No, I have actually 2 questions. Within 10 years, who is Erwin? You're not going to say, I'm retired. I don't believe in that.
No, not ever. No, the thing is, I have mellowed in the last few years, because when I started doing this, I was very driven and sometimes overdriven. And I sometimes pushed people away, maybe by being overdriven. Which I of course realize, and you learn from that. When I entered the National Police Academy, the director asked me, so when do you plan on going on a pension? And normally I can go on at 64, I think. Mm-hmm. So I still have about 44 years to do. I said to him, if I feel have my place here, if I can still do what I like to do, as it be in front of the classroom and educate people a little about what my insights, or share my insights, not educate people. That's that's a bit condescending. So No, but if I can inspire people with what I'm, with what I have to share, I can do this until 67. I don't care. And after that, why should I stop doing that in public? If other people would like me to come and share my ideas. So I don't think if you have your passion, there is no age. I look at Dr. Fauci, right? This guy is what, 74 or something like that, and he's still out there. I have a lot of respect for this guy
Now,
because he could be retired, and he says, no, I'm here for the people.
Look at Jan Bomré. He was also on the podcast. He is now turned 69 because we have the same date, and so next year he's 70, and he says, I'm writing now my masterpiece. He's writing a new book about flow and freeze, but now it's about trauma, which is actually something which is in trauma cannot flow. And he's like, this is all the trauma and all the fear and all the blockages and everything I had in my life and all the pain, all the suffering. This is now the masterpiece. The guy is turning 70.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and as I said, he's a big inspiration. I mean, I know a lot of people who know him, and he's still out there, But he keeps a very low profile.
Well,
he shares a lot of things.
It's changing. It's changing. Well, of course, he is what he is. He is indeed a low-profile guy. And in Belgium, he's not popular. In the Netherlands, he's huge. But he is now going to release his book in English because he really wants to go global. Whereas Flow, it exists in English, but he's not happy about the version. And I was like, share this with the world, Jan. I mean, do it. And he's like, yeah. Because he's actually the neighbor of Opera. So I said, next year you will be in the couch of Opera. But I mean, he's touring, so he's turning 70. So now, very last question. What is still a crazy dream? Well, a crazy one, eh? A crazy dream for you. A crazy one, eh? Maybe you can play bass at Coldplay or U2. What is a crazy dream?
Oh yes, well, you give me a good idea there, because meeting U2 or even Coldplay, because I'm a big fan of them.
Playing.
Playing, that would be great. Even if I could only play one song with them, that would be good. One is my favorite song of U2, and that would be great to play them with those guys. That's musically. Professionally, I think like to talk to 2 U.S. Navy captains, and actually I've talked to one of them, but only online and via Messenger. It's Mike Abrashoff and David Marquet. And those guys did a wonderful job in the US Navy doing, as a captain, they turned around their ship. In that sense, instead of following the rules of the hierarchy, and there has been another example now, just who was fired a few months ago, looking at their staff and leading by their staff, so to speak. So they turned around the whole idea of hierarchy and became the best performing ships and submarine, in one case, in the US fleet, which is of course quite big. And those guys, to one I talked briefly because I wanted to invite him for an event, but then it didn't work out because it was too expensive. But those guys have really, especially within the public sector, they can actually help tilt the ideas that we still have in our society. So that's professionally, and of course musically, and that would be meet and play with U2, of course. And have discussions with Bono.
Yeah, but the thing is the similarity between of course it's a distant I don't know the guys personally, but if I look at the documentary about Coldplay and about U2, it's the foundation of the band is actually the same. They split all the revenue by 3 or by 4. by Coldplay, it's 4, or no, 5 actually. So there's one guy who is not playing anything, but he's actually behind the band, and they consider him as a band member. And it's the same for you too. And also, if you look at Coldplay, you think Chris Martin is like the leader, but he's not. He's not the leader. They're all the leader, and it's that tension of these opinions who is going to create a great band. Because at one time, I believe after the first record, they fired the drummer and they got another one, which was...
They got him back, no?
Yeah, they got him back because they missed the chemistry. And since then they said, fuck it, we don't listen to the producer anymore. We're going to keep it like that. And I have such respect for that kind of mentality, because I did it, to be honest. And yeah, I did it. I would let people go because I thought there were better people, and I learned the hard way that it's not about the technical level of a certain person in a band. It's really about the team leader and being in the team and playing towards the song, and it's about the chemistry. Yeah. That's the core.
Exactly. That's also the story of U2, no? I mean, Adam Clayton wasn't the biggest bass player. Bono wasn't the biggest singer. Said he could play guitar, and he could play nothing. So the actual musicians were Larry Mullen and The Edge. But they grew together. You know, these young kids, actually, they were 16, 17 years old. So, but now look at him. He's turned 60 now, no? A month before me, he turned 60. So we're sort of generation companions. But it's amazing. And also maybe to refer back to your question, what would Erwin of 60 tell the guy from 18? Learn music earlier instead of waiting until you're 28.
Yeah, that's a good lesson. That's a good lesson. Erwin, I want to thank you for your time, your passion. I really enjoyed the conversation.
My pleasure, Peter. My pleasure.
And I wish you all the best in your private music life and your professional life. And after Corona, we'll have a beer or something to drink.
I don't drink alcohol, but okay.
Me neither.
Okay. Thank you very much. It was an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.